Sensitivity is intelligence. With grace and skill, you have abundance. Welcome to the Psychic Hour. Host Kelly Brickle is a psychic medium healer, numerologist, and teacher. Her passions are learning about the soul and energy. Whether it's through spirit, emotion, or vibrational numbers, there's always a pathway of information waiting to help. Now, here is your host of the Psychic Hour, Kelly Brickle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Psychic Hour on WLTKDB Let's Talk Radio. It's a wonderful Friday. We have Kim Conway in today. She'll be coming on in about 10 minutes-ish. And so we always have the topic of the day we talk about, and we always say hi to people coming in. This is a little bit of a different show time, so we have our 2 p.m. On a Friday. So thank you for coming in and asking your questions with us and being a part of the show. We take those questions towards the end, but you can pop them down whenever you feel inspired. So I was just up south, I'm used to going up north, but so I'm in Orange County and I was just in Carlsbad. And so I had the pleasure of doing a 5-day development class with Lynn Probert and James Von Prague. It's really nice to have those classes accessible in the area. And I just came from the highway. That's just how life is sometimes. It's just bam, right? But it is it's fun that way. It's like spirit always makes sure you get in on time. As long as you have the intention, spirit makes sure that it gets done. And that's really true with a lot of things in my life. And I think people who have had spiritual experiences, they have so much trust within the spirit world because they've had so much results with it. And it is at first this trust process where you're like, I don't know, like if it's going to work, like please give me some signs, please give me some guidance. I don't know if this is all my imagination. And whatever, your experience with spirit, there has always been a time where you can remember feeling in that place. Or even if you are advanced, there's always a time where you have to trust more because everything is so subtle. Everything is meant for us to grow. So think about that. Everything is made for us to grow. So even though we're made to trust, we're also made to surrender. And that surrender means we're supposed to trust without certainty. And so when we trust without certainty, that's like putting our foot, off a cliff, but we're walking on air, right? We don't fall. We're walking on air. We're being upheld. We're being guided. And it always comes through. But a lot of times, if you see a cliff, and this is a metaphor for whatever it is, like a relationship, or let's say progressing your spiritual work, teaching, things with your family, long time you talk to a friend, you see that cliff and you go, yeah, no way. I'm not going to jump off that cliff, or I'm not going to walk off that cliff. Like that is going to equal devastation, or that's highly uncomfortable. Maybe I do have some trust in the universe or God or spirit. Hello, Jessica. Hello, Angela. But I don't think so. And believe me, there's plenty of times within my life where I'm very uncomfortable and I go, you know what? Not today. Not today. Or I'm not gonna push myself to do to this or that, even though maybe I intended or planned for it. And maybe I could have done those things because my intention was there. But sometimes it's just too uncomfortable. And so it isn't a race just because spirit guides us from A to B. Maybe in a reading, like you're supposed to get that job or quit it, right? And you're just like, I'm not ready. And you beat yourself up for it. And it's just like, there's no timeline on it. Just know that the energy is there waiting and ready when it applies to you. But that intention is a very powerful thing, because I know within my life, if ever I have enough of a moment to sit with myself, and I do need additional time before, an event happens, or a class happens, or let's say a project happens. But if I say, hey, I'm going to need some help. I don't know if I can get this all done. I don't know if I can get this all done. And if I'm able to like lay out the general schedule with spirit, spirit will find a way where everything just comes together. And, it's not one of the big things that I shared today, but, I was up in Carlsbad at 9, and then I came back, and I was, like I was on the highway until like 1:40 almost. I was. And there's this beautiful raw food place next to where I live. And I go, I know I have 5 minutes to get something to eat. Like I could feel it all. I could feel it all. Like I know I have enough time to walk in the door, and it's all going to get done. It's all going to get done. And my husband actually like took my keys by accident. So I actually didn't have the keys to get in the door, but I had another family member with us. So I had time to even call up, and I was just like, it was a breeze. It was like, I have enough to get water. I had enough time to do this and this. And you think it was constrained, but it wasn't. It was just everything's going according to plan. Everything's here. My intention was laid out. And as long as I have a feeling connected to that intention before enduring, and the trust of what's coming, it really just, it feels like you have all the time in the world. Like time slows down. Um, I used to live in that concept a lot, and I would actually promote that concept of slowing time down, and I still employ it. But I remember when I was younger, I used to be late for everything, and I'm not great. I'm not a rock star of time management. That's not something I would say I excel at. I think I'm pretty good with management when I have to get things together, but it's always like, okay, like I'm juggling. Okay, so we're always working on things. But and hello, oh my gosh. You always have such a name where I'm always sounding it out. It's MK Vuki. McVuki. And let me know if I'm saying that right. But hello again. Nice to see you. And so with time management and stretching time out, I used to work at this I did work at a spice shop at one time, which was really fun. But I worked at a supplement store. It was like a natural foods and supplement store. And so it was awesome because I got to learn a lot about health and healing from a body standpoint. And yeah, I really had a lot of fun times there with people, and I could use my love of helping others like through that healing capacity. It was really, I had a lot of fun. But so you can imagine me in my, like fresh 20 years old, and I'm going to the job, and they would change my hours. So I'd be like, it wasn't a routine schedule. I wish they gave me more routine schedule. And I would be rushing to work a lot, and I would jump in the car, and I was like, "Oh no." And they had a very strict policy. Like you couldn't be 5 minutes late. Like you couldn't even be 1 minute late. They had a very, very strict policy. Um, and so I was always like, I'm in the car. I'm in this situation again. And I'm gonna open my heart up as this portal, and it's gonna get me to where I need to go. And lo and behold, I was always at the part, well, not always, because I would say some mornings I would be a little tired and my intention would not be as crisp. But so it didn't happen that often. I just want to promote that. Spirit really provided. But like I'm telling you, if my intention was there, I would always get there, and it didn't make an ounce of sense how I was able to get to point A to B, and I'd get there with 3 minutes to spare, 2 minutes to spare, 1 minute to spare, and I'd be always walking in the door, clocking in, and they'd just be like, just, okay, hi. I'm like, hi, I'm clocking in. And spirit provided, and it's really true. It's like time slows down or situations open up. Um, Patterns of energy, they beat to a different drum when spirit is leading the way and you're not leading the way. And isn't that so very true? Like, a lot of us have these longings or want these signs all day long within our life. If I'm supposed to do this, give me a sign. And we come to find sometimes that when we talk to other people down the road, like, almost, if I only had a friend, or if only someone was in the area, right? And let's say 2 years later, you meet a friend through a workshop or at work or however, a neighbor, and they're like, oh yeah, I've actually lived down the street for you for many years, and we just happen to bump into each other. Now, that begs the question, if our life was spirit led, did we need to, and that's the trust and surrender of it. It's the right time, I'm sure, to meet that person, but it's so funny because there's all these things around us that actually are waiting for us. They're blossoming for us when the time is right, or they're closer than we think, right? We're closer than we think to that next step, or we only think, if only I knew a person who could get me in the door. Well, you'd probably be surprised, right? And when we start racking our brains and going, how am I going to do this and how am I going to do that, and I'll never be able to get it done. And when we lean into spirit, when we lean into something greater than ourselves, the north star of the intelligence of the universe acts like, and I use the word compass a lot, is magnetic. It uses its magnetism to bring us to us what we need, and also us to those that need us. And it's pretty fantastic the way that everything is orchestrated, and you can actually send in your invitation, to be a maestro at times, but a temporary one, because ultimately spirit is the greatest conductor. It really is. But that intention is truly powerful. And so I will say that to you and give that to you. And hey, Missy. Hello, hello. And hey, Mary. There you go. Mary. I'm going to start remembering that it's Mary. I always remember it's yellow and it's like MK. So please, yes, as you're coming in, please ask your questions, whether you want to pop them down and we'll answer them. Whether, we're at the end of the show or the middle of the show, because that's when we take questions. If you want them answered, pop them down for sure. If you want to stay on with us and we will actually answer and interact with you as you ask things, then stay on, and we will do that. So we will be back in a moment with Kim, and thank you for joining us. We will see you soon.
If you're a fan of the paranormal world, then you'll love WLTK DB Talk Radio. Talk shows bringing you the latest on everything paranormal, cryptozoological, metaphysical, true crime, psychic readings, and more. The truth is here and now on WLTK DB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.
Hello, and let's bring in Kim. Hello, Kim.
Hi, Kelly. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I'm so happy to have you here. I want to give a warm introduction and for everyone to know who you are. So Kim Conway is a spiritual medium and licensed therapist who focuses on helping clients become more connected with their soul and to find a purpose in their life, heal from grief, trauma, anxiety, and other life struggles. Kim provides intuitive coaching, soul hypnotherapy, mentorships, energy healing, mediumship, and intuitive readings, meditations, spiritual and development classes. Welcome, Kim.
That's like a big mouthful, isn't it?
but rightfully so. I mean, it's like, the accomplishments and the facets of your soul and what you've done with your work, and celebrate it.
Yeah. And I
That's how
do
I
think
feel.
that mediums in general have like this huge umbrella that they're under, and they do so many different things. I have just found that to be true for a lot of people who are in the spiritual profession.
I
Yeah.
agree. It's about awareness, and when you're aware, it stimulates these points of need and these passions within you, and spirit works its way into everything because that's what we are.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's really a path of self-discovery, isn't it? As you get closer to the soul, and mediumship really brings you there. You have no choice. You're just thrust right there. And as you get in there, you just discover so many different things that you're interested in and passionate about. And it changes, for me, it just changed my life in so many different ways, many ways.
Please tell me about that. When did psychic mediumship development come into your life, or a certain instance? When did it come into your life and start to really change who you were?
Yeah, I'm not one of those people that was like born a medium or having a lot of mediumship experiences, as a child or growing up. I do understand certain things in a different way now that I understand mediumship. When I look back on a couple of different memories, it's just a few. And I feel like I always just had a good sense of knowing, good intuition. And I come from a family of people that are all that way, really great intuitives. So to me, I didn't even think of it as being intuitive or psychic. To me, it's just like, this is how people are. This is just a natural part of being a person. And then my mediumship ignited when my grandmother passed. So I was 40 years old. And I had had an awareness of spirit before then, just my own family members who had passed, and had an awareness of my grandmother, and it kind of shifted from an awareness to just having full-on conversations with her.
Wow.
Um, and again, like to me, that wasn't mediumship because I really believed so many of the different myths about mediumship. I thought you had to be born a medium. So if I'm talking to my grandmother, that doesn't make me a medium. I just thought if someone passes and you love them, of course you can continue this relationship in a new way or have an awareness of them or have a chat with them. So to me, it just felt natural and I didn't think of it as mediumship at all. As a matter of fact, I really, my whole life had shied away from psychic mediumship. I had friends that were always going to psychics or to mediums, and I was like, no way. I don't ever, I don't want anything to do with that. I really thought a psychic is just gonna tell me about all the bad things that are gonna happen to me and just make me even more anxious than I already was as a person. So, I didn't want anything to do with it, and I guess my soul had a different plan, didn't it? So, as my mediumship ignited, it started first just with my family members and my loved ones, which felt really natural to me and was really healing from my grief as well. And then it started happening in other aspects of my life. So at that time, I had a private psychotherapy practice. And with some of my clients, all of a sudden, a loved one would pop in and I'd be having a conversation with that loved one while I was doing therapy. I never brought that up in the therapy. I was quiet about it. But their loved ones would just supply me with magnificent, helpful information, things to say, beautiful analogies, um, little things that the client wasn't revealing to me that I needed to know to help them better as a therapist. So now this is happening. And I'm like, this is really curious. But again, I don't think I thought of it as mediumship. And it wasn't until I met a medium and developed a friendship with her and started getting educated about really what is a medium and
Right.
had readings from her and saw that a reading from a medium can be the most wonderful thing, right? It's not scary. It can be very healing. Um, a trained professional medium is not going to tell you about the bad things that are coming up because your loved ones are not going to tell you about that. It's just filled with this beautiful love. And as we began talking, and I started telling her what was going on with me, she just kind of laughed at me and said, well, you're igniting mediumship right now. So that's how I got into my mediumship development. She kind of shoved me into it, and I stayed there ever since. And I'm really grateful for her. And you said when you started talking today about like the timing of things, and you said, oh, let me have a friend, like if I had met her maybe 10 years earlier, maybe I would have not even have wanted to be her friend because I would have been afraid of a medium or I would have thought negatively. But she came in at the right time when I was starting to question things around me. So, Spirit, I believe just like you, everything is divine timing. Spirit does have a plan for us and helps us get there. Even when we take the wrong turn and we go down another path, our soul is just kind of like gently guiding, like, okay, let me give you this other situation to get you going where you're supposed to go. So it's very forgiving, isn't it? Our souls,
Very,
spirit.
very forgiving.
Mhm,
Yes, I agree. I like that word, very forgiving. That's like
mhm.
also a concept that you like specialize in helping people to learn about forgiveness.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about that. I think because I've had my own personal journey with it in recent years. Um, I've always found forgiving things that don't really impact you too deeply is very easy and easy for most people, right? But when you really feel like a deeper hurt, that can be very difficult. And holding on to that hurt, I think, is so self-destructive. It alters your life in ways that we don't need to be altered. And I really just my own personal belief is that forgiveness and also repentance is a powerful way to evolve and grow as a person. And I don't know if evolving as a soul is a correct term, but I think that there's like this evolvement on a soul level too. And I do believe that these two things really help us in profound ways. So once I developed that belief, because I didn't always have that belief, um, it just kind of guilted me into, okay, you got to work on forgiveness. You got to work on forgiveness. So I started my own personal journey with that. And it's been really freeing for me in just very recent times to kind of get to a level of forgiveness and also owning up to my piece in all of the things that happen, really owning up to it, that is really freeing for me and has helped me see people in a much more beautiful light. And I really I hope more people will want to do that. And in my soul coaching program, we do address forgiveness, but a lot of times people aren't ready for it or they can do a little bit of it. I think that forgiveness is a really multi-layered thing that we go through,
Yes,
that there's
yes,
so many
absolutely.
layers of it. And even though I'm sitting here saying to you today, wow, I've really gotten deep into it. Maybe if you ask me in a year from now, I'll be like, oh, I had no idea there was still so much more to do. Because I do think like all of our growing and healing is just so many different layers, just like that little flower opening up and that you keep seeing more and more petals reveal themselves that you didn't know were there. So that's just how I look at it.
I agree. There's just so many things when it comes to going within that we've buried, or there's always something ready to come up, right? The next, okay,
Mhm,
what's the next thing? Because
mhm,
we're never quite done. Like this really is earth school. We're never quite done.
right.
Hello Ward, hello Jenna. How do you feel about with forgiveness, if I may ask? Because when I find that I go, oh, I really need to forgive that. Wow, I've been really holding on to that. I will find myself letting it go. And I go, you know what? I'm good on it. And then I will see repeated behavior. Like,
Mm,
it's like repeated behavior comes up and it's not like it's their fault per se. So it's like there's
mhm.
nothing to engage in. But I go, wow, like how do you disengage from somebody that naturally maybe you have to be around?
Right, right. I mean, that's a really great question, and I also think that it shows up not just in that one relationship, but we might keep developing relationships that sort of have that similar pattern and these similar things and interactions that we're having with people. And I think once we notice that, like for myself, once I noticed, oh, this keeps coming up, not just with this person, but now it's coming up in a new way with somebody else, or it's coming up for me in my profession or whatever. I have to, it's like this red light flashing, like, hello, notice me. Like you need to learn this. You need to grow from this. So I think the noticing is the very, very first step. And as soon as I notice it, then I have to go into it more and understand it on a deeper level. And I know for myself that if something is a repeated pattern or it keeps showing up in my life, I'm part of that. Like I'm interacting in a certain way that's even just allowing for that to happen. So looking at like, what am I doing here? Like, how am I reacting? Or what did I do before that caused this to happen, is a really important part of the process of forgiveness and just changing how we interact, you know? Um, so for me, when I first stepped into forgiveness, the first thing I decided to do was just figure out like, what do I think that that means? Like, what does the word forgiveness mean? I think that that's a very personal thing. And whatever someone thinks it means, we just have to honor that.
Yes.
Um, and that's like that's your starting point, right? Like over
Yes.
time, you might develop more depth to that word and the meaning of it. But for me, I just started with, well, if I forgive someone, then what occurred no longer has like a hold on me. Like it doesn't have a power over me anymore. Because that's the thing that was difficult for me was just feeling like everything just had a hold on me. So moving towards like it doesn't have that power over me anymore. And I didn't really know how to do that. And Kelly, I don't know if you know how to do that or if anyone really knows how to do that, but I just started just going within. I started journaling about it. Um, I started when I would sit in the power, sit with my soul or meditating, kind of seeing what was coming up. I'm a Reiki practitioner. I used Reiki. I used some of my religious and spiritual beliefs that were really shifting and changing, but I used some of that. I used it all. I like put everything in the pot that I could think of. And I got to the point where, okay, I don't think this situation or this repeated pattern in this relationship has a hold on me anymore. So that was like the first level of freedom. And it was really, um, I thought I was done. I mean, it felt so freeing that I thought I was done. And I could have been done, right? But then, like, little things started showing up again. And I was starting to have those same reactions, like getting upset or getting angry or feeling hurt. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought I did that already. um,
There's
so
more.
there's there's so much more. Like, and in the meantime, while I'm doing this, Kelly, I'm in my mediumship development classes, which I feel like I've been really fortunate for the teachers that I've had because some of my teachers, it wasn't just about the technique of mediumship, but it was also really spiritual development, talking about the world of spirit, talking about the soul. And that really excited me even more than the technique of mediumship. So as I'm like learning that and starting to explore like what do I think the soul is? What do I think the world of spirit is? What do I think God is? What do I think all of this plan is? As I started kind of coming up with my own definitions that were again from myself and also from my teachers. And even just from discussions with other mediums, like my friends in my classes, when we would talk about things, um, I realized that that to go deeper for me into forgiveness, I had to start really recognizing I'm not the only one with a soul. Like, everyone has this beautiful soul light, right? I'm not the only one that has this little part of God in my soul, like that creator within us. Everyone has that. My guides
Yeah.
are not the only ones, right? So I had to expand out from myself, and at the same time, like, I'm still doing psychotherapy, and I started thinking about, like, how I am with my psychotherapy clients, and I truly love my therapy clients. Like, I have so much love for them, and my clients come from all walks. They're not only the people that had trauma inflicted upon them. Sometimes I've had clients that were the ones inflicting the trauma. So how could I love them? Like, how could I see them as worthy and having ability to change who they were and to heal? And like, a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, oh, when I put my social work hat on and I'm a therapist, I just go right in and I just see that person as their soul light. I see them as their heart. I might not have used that language, but I see them as their heart. So I already have this natural ability to do this. So why aren't I
Right.
doing this everywhere? So that was when I really got deeper into the forgiveness piece. And stop me if I'm not making sense,
You're
because
making sense. You're
it's like a
you're
little,
making
it's a crazy road. But once I realized, wow, like, I can do this, if I can do this professionally, like, I can do this personally, right? Once we already know we can do something, we can do it everywhere. So I started working on doing this everywhere. And it's hard. I'm going to be honest, it's hard because, like, with my therapy clients, my ego's not involved. Like, I haven't been hurt, right? Or I haven't been changed. So it's easy to love them, right? It's
Yeah.
easy to have compassion and love for someone you don't even know, or for a friend who's going through something. It's so easy. But as soon as our own ego is involved, that's when it gets a lot harder,
If
because
I oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, no, go.
If I may, it's interesting. Yeah, like when the ego gets involved with forgiveness, I think there's like kind of a perplexing question within that, because on one hand, if you're kind of like letting the ego go, saying, "Hey, there's soul too, just like I am," which I think is a more profound consideration than they have feelings just like me,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You understand it's their soul journey. There's one part when you surrender the ego where you're like, look, they're gonna find it when they find it. But if you're more engaged, and take the reins, like, of the moment sometimes, or even the ego, you go, well, that person's gonna have to learn their lesson, so should I speak up or should I just let it go? And I
Yeah.
find that's one of the most difficult situations, because most likely I would just let it go because I'm like, it's not about me.
Mhm.
But on some occasions I go, is it more helpful just not to say anything? Because it's like a part of me just releases it, but it's just like, if I said something, I know I would stir things up.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just like how to hold the forgiveness, or hold the understanding of the soul's journey with grace, because
Yeah.
it's like karma, it's like you can let karma handle that, but sometimes we are people's own karma. So what are
Mhm.
your perspectives of that, when the ego versus letting go versus the soul and acceptance?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I love what you just said, like, holding the soul's journey with grace. Everybody's gotta write that down. That's just a beautiful statement. You gotta write
Thank
that
you.
down and remember that, Kelly, because that was beautiful. Um But, like, to me, the ego has a really important job, right? Like, the ego knows it's short-lived. Like, it's only here while we're in this physical body. So it's just got this short period of time. If we think of, like, the soul being infinite, and we can't even really grasp, can we, what that means? But the ego just being this little drop of life in this infinite journey that we have. So it's going to be strong, it's going to be powerful, it's going to be loud. That's its job. And I really do believe its job is to challenge us every day, every moment, every breath of the day to forget the soul. That's
Oh,
how I
wow.
look at it. Like,
Okay.
I'm going to challenge you to forget who you really are. And your job is to remember who you really are. Like, that's how I think of the ego. So I'm forgetting what your question was, but like, I feel like
The
to,
ego versus, like, I guess, letting things go,
yeah,
when the
yeah,
forgiveness is enacted, sometimes, the question mark is, um, to what degree should I let this go? This is something that is just wrong sometimes, but, it's not about me, so maybe I should just let it go.
yeah. So like speaking up in a certain situation, maybe where you're not using your voice, or maybe you could use your voice. I tend to be someone that doesn't speak up in situations that are uncomfortable. I tend to be quiet. And I've beaten myself up over that so many times. And that's a piece of forgiveness I have to still work on. It's just like forgiving my own silence sometimes. But I often feel like, if I speak now, am I going to just make it worse? And I don't want to make it worse. I don't know what to say to make it better right now. So I'm going to be quiet, or recognizing this is about them. So I just have to kind of let them have their experience right now that they're having. Um,
Mhm.
that's how I kind of justify my not speaking up.
Yeah.
But it is, I haven't gone about forgiveness and from the perspective of I'm going to go have a conversation with that person and do healing through the conversation. We're going to talk it out, because I think that that can just make it more complex.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I
and I
agree.
feel like in the moments we already had that chance to have that conversation or talk it out, and either I was quiet or I spoke up and it didn't go anywhere well and it just got worse, whatever happened. So now I'm forgiving the past, whether the past was 2 minutes ago or 25 years ago. I'm working on something that's already been done. So
Okay.
for me, I think my ego wants me to stay in this uncomfortable situation, like with these uncomfortable feelings, because it wants me to believe that I'm not enough or not good enough. And it wants me to forget that there's this whole other part of me, this soul part of me, that has a completely different message. So it's about remembering we're over here, we're on the soul side, and the ego is just doing its job, you know? And what helped me kind of sort that out was not my background as a social worker, but thinking about the ego from that perspective, but like as I entered mediumship development, and when you're doing readings, the ego mind has to be quiet. It has to play along and allow the soul to lead. My perspective is that the soul is the medium, and me as a person, I affect my mediumship, but the soul is the one doing the work. Um,
It's
so the
understandable.
yeah, so like the idea that like my ego has to kind of succumb to my soul, wait a minute. That was like a whole new idea for me and a new concept for me. And but as you do succumb to the soul, and you do these readings and you feel all this beautiful unconditional love and all this joy from the world of spirit, no matter who that spirit person was when they were alive, they could have been a son of a gun. There's some, you feel still with their personality this powerful love, right? And it started teaching me in a more profound way, I'm not what my ego mind tells me that I am. I really am what my heart and my soul tell me that I am. And there's this act of I've been studying recently the Gospel of Mary Magdalene,
Oh, wow.
and there's this act of kenosis that I've been learning from a theologist. Her name is Megan Watterson. I highly recommend people read some of her books. She's amazing. And she talks about kenosis. It's a Greek word that means self-emptying love. And it's the idea of emptying that ego. So, like, moving away from that ego and going right into the heart and into the soul. And that is a process that we can do every every day, all day long. As soon as you feel like you're getting tugged into that negativity or into that false truth, you can come back right into that heart truth. And that all to me lined up with my mediumship development, which is about blending with the soul. And Kelly, when we're sitting in our power, sitting with our soul, that's what we're doing, right? And we spend, as mediums, we spend so much time doing that, to
Yes.
develop our mediumship, and we
I
start
thought
learning about ourselves in this newfound way. So
it's
the idea that, well, what about anyone doing it, not just mediums, right? Like,
right.
why can't we all just be doing this? And so I haven't perfected it. I have to do it a million times a
Oh,
day, or
we're all
sometimes,
doing it.
like,
Yeah.
weeks will go by and I've forgotten, right? And I'm all just
Right.
like ego head, but I know now, like, to do it. And that's the piece that I'm really excited about, and that's what I love helping others do, is learn this new definition of yourself. So in relation to forgiveness, if I'm emptying the ego and going into the heart and the soul, as soon as I do that, I see that person and that situation with completely different eyes. And I can see them without that ego part of them, and them with just that soul light, that heart, and this their intentions. And you were talking in the beginning about intention today, and I agree with you. Intention is everything, and it's so powerful. So
It's
if I
very
look
powerful.
back on some of these situations that were hurtful, and I think, well, wait a minute, they're a beautiful soul too. Was their intention only from their ego? Like, maybe they thought they were doing well too. Like, maybe they thought they were doing the right thing. And maybe just like I was reacting, thinking I was doing the right thing. Like, maybe we're all coming from these great intentions, but we just muck it up.
You just
And
yeah.
that that was like an explosion for me of forgiveness. Like, once I started looking at everyone that way. Now, I forget, like I said, like, I have to remind myself always to keep doing this self emptying, this ego emptying and moving over. But the more I learn to do it, and the better I know I will be with it. And I hope that I will always work on this for the rest of my life.
Yes.
And I think that it can help us individually, but I think it could even just help us in humanity, like with the state of humanity right now, because we're so judgmental and we have such differing opinions and we don't embrace our differences. And again, if like you empty the ego and go into the
Mhm.
love, we even just look at all that differently, don't we?
I
So,
think empathy is very important. I think, the way that we live our life and think about it, some people have been on the planet for, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years plus, right? Think about all the experiences and all the emotions. And
mm,
it's not exactly a natural process for us to facilitate a place of release on a
mhm,
continual basis. And
mhm,
so we carry so much, especially if we're in a line of work where we're helping to hold space, or we're helping to help another sort, or we're in a place where people confide in us, right? So we're
mhm.
sharing energy. It's not that we're like absorbing energy all the time. Yes, that is a concept, but
Yeah.
sometimes we just share energy.
Mhm,
And sometimes just to keep going, to lean into life, sometimes we do have to go, all right, I'm going to put this on the back burner. It's not about me, I got to get this done, but it's just like all those things accumulate. And it's like you talked about the word like mucking it up. And it's just like the word muck for me is like, like busy, maybe muddy, grimy. It can be a lot of things, but it's just like you're able to help people, I would imagine, everything that you're saying come together in my eyes. Like, you're able to facilitate the space because you've emptied your container. And so your energy is not mucked up. It's very simple. It's very pure. It's very, okay, let's do some untangling. Let me help you. And yeah, like we have to empty or it just gets so busy and so overwhelming and so
Mhm.
emotional. Even if you're not the most emotional person, it boils up to the surface.
It does. I mean, everything does, right? I mean, we can't help it. I mean, we can't help it. I mean, it's just part of being a human being. I mean, the truth about being a human being is just being part of this what's created, right? Like our bodies are created for us, right? But also we're part of the creator. And I think before my mediumship development, I didn't understand. I never thought about being part of the creator. I was just here. And I think most people just live here, right? The idea of being part of the creator. Most religions don't teach that. They teach, no, you're the created, you're separated. And us ignoring that divine part of ourselves is, I think, what makes life hard and harder. And it makes it harder to forgive. It makes it harder to have peace between people and just even peace in your own heart, like how we judge ourselves. And this concept that we're part of both the created and the creator is, it's a new concept for me, relatively speaking, because most of my life I didn't believe that. But now that I'm coming to believe that, um, understanding really what does that actually mean, that's what I'm kind of excited to learn as I go forward, is really, what does that mean? Like, how can that change everything if you believe that and you tap into that? And this is the beauty of mediumship, really, is you're tapping into that every time you do a reading. You're part of that divine part of yourself. You're feeling it. You're allowing it to lead you in that moment. You're not the ego self. And of course, we know in mediumship development, we're doing a reading and, oh, my mind just came in. My mind, that didn't come from spirit. That came from me, right? We have to get back in our power. So we're like understanding even like how it feels when the mind comes in. So I'm super,
Absolutely.
super passionate about mediumship becoming recognized as a respected profession because of what it has to offer in general. Not, it's more than just showing that life is eternal. It's so much more. I mean, I think it's about understanding that we're part of both, and
I,
what can that mean for you? It's
I,
it's really important.
it's really important. I do think it's a funny thing. You talked about mediumship being respected. I feel like a lot of things are in the world that are coming to a change. It's very polarized. There's people who have immense respect for it,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes it's almost like, whoa, like, we're
Yeah.
all in this together, right? Like, someone does a great reading or someone is a great teacher and you see like people flock to them and they're just like, whoa, that's like extreme. And then the other hand, like, you're all, that's, fraudulent, that's fake. So you get the
Mhm.
vast extremes, and right, it's really like starting to even out. I agree, absolutely. I want to take some questions too, if you'd like as well.
Sure.
So we have some comments. Someone said, wow, I really needed to hear this today. That's when you're
Um,
talking about forgiveness. And Ward is talking about all wisdom is already stored in yourself, and there is an answer from inside
mm,
to all your questions. It was
yeah,
always there. It costs nothing, and you have it at a hand when you start listening to yourself. Absolutely.
I love
Sometimes,
that. Love
sometimes
that.
it's hard to do it all ourselves because we're all
It
in this
is.
together, but he's
Mhm.
100% right. I go, "What was
Yes.
I thinking? I could have just clocked inward."
Mhm.
He talks about, when you speak to people, people who see your heart and receive your soul will come forward with openness and receive truth. With the truth you grow. So, yeah, I'm gonna take another question after this, but Ward's talking about when with when you receive truth, you grow. So what has been your growth when truth came into your life through mediumship?
Wow, that's like a big question, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I wanted to ask
Um,
it though.
so the first piece for me is trust. Like trusting is huge for me. I'm not I had to look at my relationship with trust in general, like as Kim, as a person, because trusting my mediumship has been very, very difficult. And one of my teachers, Mavis Patilla, would always say, you have to trust the spirit person. If you don't trust that, if you say you don't trust yourself, it means you don't trust them. And like, I feel like she guilted me into, okay, I'm going to work through trust because like, I don't want to tell spirit I don't trust them, because of course I trust them. I just don't trust me. And it just got all kind of mucked up for me. But the idea that, wait, what was the question? Now I lost my train of thought.
Sure.
Oh, the
Within
wisdom. Yeah.
the
So,
vibration of truth, how that has
yeah.
caused you to grow in your mediumship, and
So,
you finding truth, yes, through mediumship.
yes. Thank you. For me,
Awesome.
it started coming out through my writing. So I do inspired writing. And when I sit and do that, so much wisdom comes out, wisdom, philosophy, stuff that I know like my brain doesn't think up, like it wouldn't be able to. And when that started happening, uh, I didn't really understand at at the very beginning that that was coming from my soul and my guides. I wasn't sure where it was coming from, but as I started to really understand the soul in a new way, I started to understand that the soul has its own wisdom and philosophy, that and each one of us has that, right? And that we can tap into that. And when we tap into that, like this amazing information comes out. And you can see that sometimes like in really good trance mediumship, when someone is channeling something and it's just like this really high wisdom. So for me, it's just come out in the writing, and I didn't trust it. I really didn't trust it. And one day I was reading this book by Suzanne Giesemann, and she was talking in her book about her writing and how one day she started writing in poetic verse when she was doing inspired writing. And she knew she couldn't just sit and write a poem. So that this was like really coming from a higher space. And I said, oh, that's what I need, something like that, so that I can know, am I making this all up? Is this all crazy talk? Or do I need to trust this? Can I trust this? So I just said to Spirit, make me write in poetic verse. And I just sat down, and after that, like right away, started writing in poetic verse. And that helped me trust. So I had to present a challenge to my soul and to my guides.
Like
Like,
that sometimes.
you have to prove it to me. I'm not just going to believe. So I'm sorry for that, but they know I'm difficult, and I'm difficult the whole way through. So that's what I did personally.
The whole way through. Uh-oh. You just said that yourself. Uh-oh.
My whole development will be difficult. I'll
No, we
be
don't want
fighting
that.
tooth and nails, but that's really how I kind of helped myself trust. And also I just got to discover like something that my soul could do. And I still enjoy doing that. I like doing that for other people. And I have journals filled with this poetry, and sometimes also just paragraphs written that are explaining what's being spoken about. So, and some of it, for some people might say, oh, that's not such high wisdom. But for me at the time, I never knew about these things. Like I didn't think about the world this way. I didn't think about the soul this way. I didn't think about the universe this way. So to me, it just was so profound, and still is. It's still kind of shocking to me, every little piece that I learn just from going within. So if trust is difficult, or understanding how to access it is difficult, I would say maybe just try presenting a challenge, like try asking, like, help me do this, and then I will know. Or see if writing is for you. Or people do, beautiful artwork, and they've never been an artist or trained, but they do this beautiful spirit art. And that's like proof that that
Yeah.
person is connected, right? And they're working from their soul. I think that that's amazing. There's just so many different ways to see it, or just speak and don't prepare what you're going to speak and see what comes out. Maybe record it and see what
It's
comes out, because there's so much there. There really
the
is. Hmm.
there is so much. There is so much that like the truth conquers all. So you're talking about
Hmm.
give yourself like an obstacle and you'll find yourself conquering it through truth.
Hmm.
I would
Yeah.
imagine. Angela's asking as well. Excuse me. Jessica is asking you. How did you start to see spirit first? For example, did they look like smoke or like heat, like a heat wave?
Okay. That's a great question. And I think it can be very different for a lot of people. For myself personally, when my clairvoyance opened up, um, that was like in the therapy room, and I was seeing spirit almost like a hologram, like outside of myself. So I could see them in the room. My clairvoyance did eventually change to now I see in my mind, and sometimes my mind will place a spirit person in the room. So it's always been like that for me. So, really like seeing a picture. I can say that, like, from my, I think it's all right, I can say this, but like my mother sees spirit every night, but she sees it as very smoky movement. She doesn't necessarily always see faces or bodies, and the smoke over time has changed into having a lot of color. So I know, like when you said in your question about the smoke, that that's very natural. I've had a lot of people tell me that that's how they have seen spirit or do see spirit. So I think it can be in many different ways. And, seeing, subjectively or objectively, and that can change over time. I remember in the beginning of my development, I myself and other students in my class, we always wanted to close our eyes when we were doing a reading. And the teacher said, you got to keep your eyes open, because how are you ever going to know if you can really see, objectively? Wouldn't that be amazing, right? So it can change over time, is what I would say. But for me, it
Absolutely.
was like I saw people in the room. I did. Hmm.
I mean, hey, if you can see someone standing in the room, I think that's some of the most solid stuff waiting to
Yeah,
help you. That's
yeah.
pretty
I
fantastic.
don't see that way right now. But spirit, I'd welcome that to come back, because it really does help, like with your confidence and everything when you see that way, for sure.
I
Hmm.
agree. It's not for some people it's typical, but it's definitely
Hmm.
not a typical experience that I've had where they're
Yeah,
just like standing and it's like, "Hey, what's up?
yeah,
Hi, tell me about yourself."
yeah.
I love hearing about it though. I really
Hmm.
do. Another question is what is the best way to work with the heart chakra?
The heart chakra. So,
Mhm.
um, what are we trying to do with the heart chakra? Are we trying to get it into balance? I'm going to assume that, right? Like when I think of the heart chakra, I think of it as a balance, needing that balance of love. So giving love, also receiving love and self-love, and trying to do that in a balanced way. I think that that's very difficult for many of us, especially people who are in a healing profession, people who are empaths, who are really good at giving love. When it comes to receiving love, we're like, don't pay attention to me. And then self-love, we can suffer too. So I think for the heart chakra, for it to really be balanced, we have to be paying attention to all three. And depending on what's going on in our lives, sometimes one is more dominant than another because of what we're addressing and what our situation is, right? Sometimes you have to really be caring for someone else because they need it, or maybe you're sick and you're needing to receive more. But overall, if you look at the span of your life, can we be doing this in a balanced way? Can we be paying attention to all three? So that's
When
how
you
I
say
think about the heart chakra.
when you
Mhm.
say all 3, are you talking about like the throat and the solar plexus and how or describe that actually?
Oh, I'm
All
meaning
3.
like giving love, like, so being a
Oh,
giver, being a
oh,
receiver, and also self-love.
Oh, okay. Self-love,
Those
giver,
3.
receiver.
Yeah.
Okay. That
Mhm.
makes sense. That makes sense. I was like, okay. All right. That makes perfect sense now. Yeah, yeah. I would say that's true balance. The
Mm.
Trinity. Um, Ashley's asking if we're giving readings. No, it's an interview show. So if you have a question, pop it down. Um, Yes, absolutely. And another talk about trust. Trust is very important because we never know the truth. Do you feel like um, when you trust that you're uncertain what you're going to find, or do you have trust in what you'll find? How am I put? That's a little bit of a tongue twister. When you are trusting, do you find yourself more like kind of in that energy of like I have to trust because I'm uncertain, or do you find yourself okay, I have to trust and I'm feeling that certainty? Where do you find yourself with your trust?
So in general or just in my mediumship?
And whatever facet you want to answer within hypnotherapy, within your
Okay.
coaching, your
Mhm.
mediumship, wherever you'd like.
Okay. So, um, for me personally, trust has been a hard thing. I think for a lot of people, once you're hurt, there can be this difficulty in trusting. So, trusting human beings or trusting others. But I think my natural state was to just be completely trusting. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, I wanted to go back to the natural state of just being a trusting person. And that, of course, got played out in my mediumship because who I am is going to affect my mediumship. So, trusting in the reading, trusting to say the information that I'm being given was hard for me. Now, in the very beginning, though, I started from my natural state. I just completely trusted. Like when spirit was in those therapy sessions and telling me stuff, they were saying, Kim, say this. Well, I would just say it. Like I didn't even think to distrust it, I-
Yeah.
which seems crazy to me now because I didn't even understand what was going on. Um, and when I first started my development classes, I was so excited that I could link with spirit because I didn't think I could. I went into my first class saying, all right, I'm probably the only one here who's not a medium, but I'm just gonna have to live with the embarrassment of it, you
Oh
know?
no.
So when I started doing readings, I was like, wow, whoa, my gosh. So I was like so excited that I just would speak and say things.
Yes.
So
Yes.
then when I started understanding, oh, wait a minute, maybe you're a medium. That's like when the distrust came in and I started messing up what was just occurring for me naturally.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
it's been a long journey
Makes sense.
of working through that.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
working through it too. I have
yeah,
compassion and empathy for that. Yes.
yeah. So I would say recently what I've noticed is I've had a few challenging readings where they started out and for one-on-one readings, and for, like, the first 20 minutes, I'm getting no's, like, a lot of no's, and I wasn't paying attention to them. So when I sat after the reading, kinda looked at the reading, I was like, "Oh my gosh, those no's didn't even stop me. I was just completely with spirit and just talking." So I do feel like right now there's this shift in the positive direction with my trust because the no's aren't derailing me like they used to. Um, so I feel like I'm going into a deeper surrender. And Kelly, you were talking about surrender in your introduction and in your inspired talk. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're talking about surrender because I've been really thinking about that lately. And I try to every day, I pull a tarot card for myself and I keep pulling the Fool like a lot, which to me is about trust and surrender. Like that's how I'm reading it for myself. Like just believing in the flow, just surrendering into the flow, seeing what's brought, and trusting in my soul and spirit. And I think it's getting easier for me to do it. I'm not great at it, but it's getting easier for me to do it just because the more you feel the power of your own soul, the more you just want to trust it. I think that's how it's changing me, is just feeling that. Sitting in the power, sitting with the soul, is helping me in that way with trust, not just in my mediumship, but going back to who I was which was someone that just wanted to believe in people and trust in people. So it heals both ways, doesn't it, Kelly? Like the mediumship heals
Absolutely.
the person, and if the person changes, they help their mediumship. Like it's just constantly going around.
I I think it's just the natural state of things. When we heal ourselves, it's almost like we change the way that our relationship is with other people, like on
Mhm.
this like really subconscious level. So it's
Yeah.
almost like we just start to lean into this different direction, and then suddenly the way that people interact with us, even the closest people, it's different. It's like they're more relaxed too, because
Mhm.
there's healing energy like infused in who you are as a person. So sometimes, like, you might be talking to your parents or your brother or sister, and you're like, what did I say to peeve you? Like I didn't, right? But then you start like doing all these things differently, but it's just for yourself. It has nothing to do with them. And you find that like that element is kind of like, oh wow, it's been like way easier to talk to them. And like they
Mhm.
just seem happy around me. And I haven't changed anything about how I'm talking to them at all. That it's just
Mhm.
like they feel my energy, and my energy was influencing the relationship a certain way.
Mhm. Mhm. I think that we do that all day long everywhere we go, right? With
Yeah.
whatever our mood is presenting,
Yes.
we do that for one another, and we definitely help each other in that way. It's just like there's so many stories of someone like not feeling so good one day, and a stranger smiles at them, and it changes their whole day, and that's like
Yeah.
real, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Hmm.
It is amazing. It is real. Um, have you, speaking of kind of like the energy that we share between each other, have you ever had experience? I think everyone has had this experience of, let's say, you're pretty neutral the way that you're communicating with people, you're having a nice time, you enjoy your company, whether it's friend or family, and then but you've had a stressful day, right?
Hmm.
But you're really happy to be spending the time with the person, and the person being empathetic starts to pick up on your stress, and they just start feeling like more uneasy, right? And
Hmm.
so you might make a joke and they're like, wow, you sound really angry or something like that. And it's just like, whoa, like we're really sharing energy, aren't we? My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a struggle for empaths in general is just this constant, it's like walking around being a sponge and you're just soaking up everything. And it gets so confusing to know what's me, what am I really feeling? Like what's coming from me? And what did I just pick up? from somebody else. And I think that that's a huge struggle for people. It's a struggle of boundaries, it's a struggle of being an empath. And I think just as soon as you recognize it, then just kind of shedding it and letting it go. Because we get really focused on like when it affects us negatively, like when the energy doesn't feel good.
It's true.
But it affects us positively too. Like a lot of it is just, you know, um, feeling better because you're around someone that has uplifted you. My daughter got married this summer, and then since I've gone to two other weddings, and like the energy of a happy wedding, it's like the most uplifting thing. Like the bride and groom completely control the joy of the entire room. And it's just it was the most powerful thing for me to witness and be a part of, not just at my daughter's wedding, but the other two weddings that I just recently went to. And it's just this reminder of the simplest thing, like one person being joyful and sitting in a place from love can change an entire room of people in this beautiful, magnificent way, no matter, and in a whole room of people, everybody's got their stuff they're dealing with. Not everything's like in a perfect place,
Yeah.
but they can feel joy. And I think that that's really powerful. Like we have this ability to do this for ourselves. It's even in grief, like when we're grieving and like heavy grief, people who have lost a very significant person and they learn how to feel joy. and laugh while they're grieving, like doing both at the same time. I mean, that's powerful healing. That's resilience. When you see people do that, nothing, um, I shouldn't say nothing impresses me more, but that just impresses me so much. And I feel like that is the journey of grief, is learning. That's a big part of the journey. Just learning how to feel joy while you're really missing someone and so devastated by the loss. Um, that we can do that. And again, when you're around someone who's grieving, but being joyful, the effect that that can have on you, right? It's like
Yeah.
so impressed and you get so uplifted by their resilience.
Yes.
I think resilience is another piece of the energy that we're putting out to people. When we're not feeling resilience and we're not tapped into it, or when we are, and we affect each other that way. But I mean,
That
we are like spirit in this physical body, and spirit is energy. Like everything is energy.
mhm,
So I just think we feel it all the time. We feel the energy of the earth. We feel the energy of the animals, the plants, the trees, everything. We feel the energy of it.
I
Um,
think that resilience you talked about is really a form of self-mastery. You
yeah,
know, sometimes when I meet people, or let's say if I do know someone's life story a little bit, there's just a certain energy about them where you just kind of like respect them or just like them because you're just like,
yeah,
wow, this is a cool person. Like you
yeah.
just know that they've been through a lot, but they're so positive,
Mhm,
or like
mhm.
they just care because they get that it matters.
Yeah,
And they're really
right?
special people. I
They
agree, they're
are.
really special people.
That we need to be knowing them all the time, right? Like, everyone needs people like that around them, um, 'cause they change the world around them. They really do. Yeah.
It's true. It's like
Mhm,
no matter where they are in their life, you talked about balancing the three parts of the heart chakra, the self-love, the giving and receiving, and it's like they have had to weather the storm of that, and like
mhm.
they're naturally always going to give back, whether they're standing up for how they receive or whether they're making sure to give themselves self-love so they're able to weather the next storm. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I love that perspective of, like, the 3 parts of the heart. It just highlights of what I know about wonderful people, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and people kinda the other thing that always impresses me about people is people who walk through life without a lot of worry or without a lot of anxiety, because that was always very foreign to me. I'm like the number one worrier, and that's like another thing that I've been really working on, and just that act of the self-emptying love is what's really helped me not worry as much, and,
Yes.
I can easily go into worry, but that's not the point. The point is I can come right out of it, or sometimes I can avoid it altogether by just staying in that state. So all these things, like everything that we can think of that's a struggle in life, if we use the soul to help us with that struggle, like the soul has a way to help any struggle, I think, that can come up. And just kind of going back to that place is the most powerful thing that we can do for ourselves, for healing, for just getting through a situation, getting through a day, managing grief, living with grief, um, surviving trauma. I mean, we survive trauma because of our soul. I think,
Yeah.
um, and then we can heal from it because of our soul. So everything to me, the thread just keeps going back there. That's just where I'm looking right now, I guess, in my little Kim Conway journey.
The resiliency of the soul, because my goodness, right? My
Mhm.
goodness. If I may ask too, Kim, so, like, what are some things that you're working on that people can be a part of? And also, like, how can people find you if they
Oh,
are interested in working with forgiveness or grief or, different therapies or the development of their mediumship?
they can just easily go to my website. It's kimconway.com. It's very simple. Or you can just email me, hello, kimconway@gmail.com. So that's the easiest way to find me. And I do a number of different things, but everything comes from this perspective of coming back to the soul. So my soul coaching program is something that someone would do if they are struggling with trauma or limiting self-beliefs or a lot of anxiety and worry or working through forgiveness. That would probably be where that we would do that. I also do energy healing, and then I do something called soul hypnotherapy. It's something that I created from different hypnotherapy trainings that I have, and it's really about helping the person connect to their higher self or their subconscious. We prepare different questions that they have about themselves, and we go to the subconscious and we ask them. And that's been kind of that's mind blowing when you
Yes.
listen to somebody's higher self speak.
Yes. Yes.
It's like,
I've never had the pleasure, other than in, like, groups, but, like, Dr. Brian Weiss.
yeah, oh gosh, yeah.
Yes, his
Mhm.
books and the dialogue in there,
Yeah,
and you're like, "Whoa."
yep. Absolutely. It's really just, again, that profound wisdom that is there that we can tap into. It's just amazing to me. And the things that are said and the healing that can be done from that soul space, that higher self space, is really amazing to me. Um, I do mentoring for mediumship development. I have taught classes in the past, and I've switched how I'm doing it. I like to do it from a perspective of personal development to help the mediumship development. So sometimes there is the technique of like how to the clairs and all of that. Like you need a little technique in the very beginning to understand it. But I feel like when we're going deeper into that mediumship development, we have to start thinking about like how we are affecting our mediumship. How are we interacting with our clairs and the opening up of that? So I'm currently writing up this whole, I don't know what to call it. I keep calling it a program, but I think it's a class uh, of doing that. So helping the medium develop their mediumship to a greater depth by looking at the person. So a lot of self-reflection and self-growth to ignite the mediumship. I have found that I cared more about becoming a better medium or a good medium than I did ever about healing myself. Like wanting to be a better medium has ignited a true desire to become like better Kim.
Yeah,
And I think that that's what I see in my medium friends too. Like they just want to keep growing and growing, like that desire to be a better medium makes them work so hard at everything else. Um, Mediums who are in development to me are like some of the hardest working people I've ever known. Like
it's true.
so diligent, right? I mean, my mediumship development has been harder than any other education that I've done. Like I've worked harder at it, I should say. And it just never ends. It has
It just
no, like there's no point where you're like you get that degree and like okay, you're done, right? Like you,
no, for
right?
real, like, even if you happen to be good at it, like, in a specific facet, there's, like, all this other stuff where it's like, "Well, you thought you were good at that, now
Mhm.
this."
Yeah, now that,
You're, like,
okay, now this just hit you in
constantly
the face, right? So, or your mediumship changes, and now you gotta learn to
Yes,
work with your clairs in a different way, like, my
yes,
clairvoyance changed dramatically,
yes.
um, and then, okay, now I'm like, "Okay, I wanna get it back. I wanna get that other piece back." So, like, there's always this movement, and that's just like there's always movement with us as people. So, that's how I'm working with the mentees that I have now, and it's been really rewarding, so much fun. And so I'm hoping to have this out after the new year, I guess I would say. That's my goal. But I'm trying to surrender and just trust that spirit will put it out there when it's supposed to be and when it's ready. So
That
instead of
it
controlling it so much, but I'm developing it in a way that it can be a standalone and I can do it, or it can be combined with other teachers and other mediums, combining that development from the technique. using that technique and strengthening that, but also strengthening the healing as a person and really understanding how we heal our mediumship and how our mediumship heals us. I think that's one of the greatest gifts of mediumship. I really do. I mean, there's a lot of great gifts of mediumship. I don't consider
Absolutely.
mediumship in itself a gift. I consider it just a natural part of the soul.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
it
yeah.
gives so much. It really does give so much. It really
It's
does.
I mean, like, yeah, it's not a gift like I have this superpower, you
Right.
don't. It's like a gift, like, this is awesome and everyone has it. Like, like someone's like like someone goes around town and just smiles all the time, like, that's a gift, but anyone can
Yeah.
smile, right? You know what I mean? It's just like,
Right.
gosh, this just is amazing. This is just so
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. This has gone by like a comet, which is always a good thing. I always give my guests the last word. So, is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with? Any inspiration or aha moment you've had recently?
I would just say, please don't ever give up on yourself, that you're so much more than you can ever know in this lifetime. You're so much more, so much greater, so much more powerful than you can ever possibly believe. And I hope that you'll spend time getting to know that part of yourself. And you're not always just what that ego mind tells you. And I hope people just spend time shifting over to that spiritual side, to that soul side, and really understanding and just embracing. Just embrace yourself. And I have a little saying that Spirit gave me. I always love to just say, your soul's love flows eternal. And isn't that magnificent? That no matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter what, your soul will always love you, always. And that's really powerful.
Your soul's love is eternal. You heard it from Kim, and hopefully, you felt it with your heart too, because that's what we're all shifting into, right? With your soul.
Mm.
Thank you so much, Kim, for being here. Thank you, thank you. Everybody, we do have a reading show right after at oh my gosh, time. Well, in 30 minutes. So there is a reading show if you'd like to be a part of the reading show. I want to thank Kim so much. Her energy is so sweet, kind, caring, compassionate. Love being around it. Please go with love, light, and look, everybody. And don't forget to live and listen to those beautiful words of Kim.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks for having me. And thank you for all your inspiring words as well.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you, Kim.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.